Hello, and welcome to the State of Scottish Football podcast on the State of Mind Network. Thank you for joining us this evening, whether that's on Facebook, Twitter, or YouTube, as we set about discussing the weekend of Scottish football that just passed us by. I'm Cameron Wanstill. I'm joined by Ayrshire's finest, Jack Donnelly. How are you keeping, mate?
I like that title. I really do. I'm doing very well, mate. Delighted to be here with you, as always.
Oh, of course, mate. It's Monday routine now, isn't it? Me and
it
you
is.
together.
Monday Club. Absolutely.
Yes, I love it. It's a shame. I really love Thursday Club as well with Struan, but I can't do the later on the Thursday. So until European football ends, but I don't want European football to end for us. So I'm here with you on a Monday, and that's good enough.
There we go.
How's your weekend been? You been busy?
To be fair, I took in 2 games. Thankfully, I was lucky enough to be at 2 different games. I was at Somerset Park on Saturday afternoon, taking in United Arbroath for Energy Sport, and then I started my work back with Hibernian Women this weekend. So it was their first match of the new season. One of their 2 new home grounds, they're playing at Armadale Thistle whenever the Tony Macaroni Arena has been used by the men's team. Of course, they were playing Aberdeen. So we got a 4-0 win at home, technically, to Kilmarnock, which, as an Ayr fan, I'm always happy to see Kelly lose. So I was equally as happy to see that result come through on Sunday. How about yourself? What have you been up to this weekend?
What have I been up to this weekend? I've been working. I was working out really boring. Gutted I couldn't make it to Hibs Ross County because of it, but I did get to see Hibs Rijeka on the Thursday, so lovely, will do. Hopefully they get through. I hate to say that as a Hearts fan, but hopefully they get through it and I can go back to another European game soon for them. But yours sounds more thrilling. Did you meet Dyke Campbell at Arbroath, did you?
Oh, what a guy. Honestly, what an absolute gentleman. I hadn't met him. I'd done an Arbroath game before for Ayr. I'd started kind of going when I moved back home from uni last semester, and I started getting along to Ayr, getting in, and I saw the 1-0 Arbroath win at Somerset Park, and he sent Ian over. He sent his brother, and I was gutted because I thought, it's like, right, any case, win, lose or draw, I'll meet Dyke Campbell today. That'll be class. But he sent his brother, who's lovely guy as well. I can't knock Ian Campbell whatsoever. But I was buzzing the fact I went down and I looked up and I saw Dyke Campbell walking over. So delighted to see that. And he was a lovely guy, just chatted away, had his own thoughts on the game, absolutely. And as the Ayr fan, we came down for 2-0. I was more than happy to see him a wee bit agitated about dropping 2 points. So, but what a guy.
It makes for good content, doesn't it? Well, suppose we get started. Please do get involved in the comment section, people, of course. As always, let us know what you're thinking. We'll try and bring it into our chat. And feel free to subscribe to a State of Mind YouTube channel as well, if you haven't done so already, as doing so gets you entered in some excellent prize draws and keeps you up to date with all the great content this network publishes on a daily basis. Well, we've got plenty to delve into, so we'll just get into it, Jack. Firstly, before we get into any games, fans are back properly back. Obviously, it's been brilliant seeing some 1,000 fans back, but they are properly back now. Full houses, full capacities. How much of an impact do you think it will make?
Well, I mean, even before we talk about the impact it's going to make, it's just so good to hear. And it's so good to see, because we've been seeing today and kind of throughout the last week or so, because the rules are it's 5,000 people in a crowd that are permitted, up to 5,000 people. And then for anything else, you would need to apply to the local council. So what we've seen Glasgow City Council permit both Celtic and Rangers to have full capacity ahead of their European games this week. Hibs have just come out in the last kind of 30 minutes or so, the same with Hearts, and said that they're going to have full capacity for their coming game. St Johnstone said the same for their massive match against Galatasaray on Thursday night. So it's just so gratifying, so good. Just there's nothing better than seeing full capacities allowed across the board. And I feel it's going to be hard to judge, to be honest, because you always do say that all the home teams get the advantage, especially if it can be a bit of a bear pit if the fans do make a fair bit of noise. But I suppose every fan's going to be like that. Even the away fans are going to be properly rowdy because they've been without it for 16, 17 months at this point. So any opportunity to get in a ground and make some noise, a fan's going to go and do that. So excited to see what it means for home and away sides, but I'm just delighted that this is where we are at the moment anyway.
Yeah, definitely. How soon do you think you'll get back to a game?
Well, I mean, all goes to plan. I'll hopefully be there we've kind of talked about it. Our colleagues over at Energy Sport have talked about getting to a game. So I think we might try and take in an Edinburgh City match this coming Friday. But I think if it all goes to plan, I'll get a ticket for Ayr United's cup match at home to Dundee United, welcoming Lawrence Shankland back. Hopefully he's returned from that hip injury. So if I can get back to a match as a fan as soon as possible, I absolutely will.
Well, we'll see if he's still there, mate. We're going to be talking about that in a bit. He might be away. There might not be a reunion. We'll have to wait and see. Speaking of Dundee United, why don't we just get right into it? We know what happened. Sorry, any Rangers fans, but 41 games unbeaten didn't happen. It is over. The first league defeat since I think it's March 2020 against Hamilton Accies. I think it's the second last game before that season was cut short. And it's also Tam Court's first league win as United boss. So some massive milestones there. Massive milestones. The only goal of the game came from Jamie Robson, the fullback. Brilliant goal, to be fair. Good ball. I think it was a deflected ball through, but he does really well to just run in, stab it in. Speaking of him, he's received plenty of interest from down south. I think it's Lincoln City and Sunderland, two clubs that could easily drag a player away, sadly, from the Premiership. Do you think he'd be a big loss to that United team?
I think he definitely could be. I mean, he's definitely what we've seen of him at Dundee United. He's been a talented player. I think he had a fair bit to play in their season of kind of consolidation in the league last season. And obviously the goal against Rangers, that kind of speaks volumes for itself. I mean, if that's a final act for his club, then what a way to go out scoring against the league champions and consigning them to their first defeat in 41. So credit the boy. He did well to kind of follow it in, because it wasn't really ever clear that it was going to end up at him. I mean, it took a massive deflection off of Stephen Davis, and then almost kind of seemed it was going to drop for Connor Goldson, but then the centre-back just kind of backed away from it a little bit, gave Robson that space, and then the finish, it's a decent wee finish from him. So fair play to the lad, and I can definitely see why there is that interest from down south, just whether he wants to stick around and kind of play Tam Courts football, or Thomas Courts as we should be calling him, of course.
Thomas Courts.
It's a very, very Andy/Andrew Cole.
I don't like it. I like Tam.
Situation there.
Tam is so much better.
Tam's Tam. I much prefer to be called Tam.
Yeah,
but definitely going to be a big loss to Dundee United if he does go.
Yeah, 100%. Also, another big loss, I would say, Lawrence Shankland. Also, you've said there that it's a hip injury that's ruled him out. That's the official news, but of course there is major links saying that our move to Belgium side Beerschot is imminent. Obviously they're lining up Reading striker and former United loanee and Hibs loanee Mark McNulty. Do you think that's good transfer business? If they get a bit more money in for Shankland, get him in a bit cheaper?
Well, that's the thing we've kind of mentioned in the weeks kind of prior to this show, Cameron, that Dundee United aren't in the best of financial situations at the moment. And I think McNulty's a decent enough player at this level. I think he's been kind of in and about the Premiership for a number of years now. So I think if they were to get rid of Shankland, you would imagine for a fair sum. I think they were quoted at 500,000, which for a player of Shankland at Scotland International, I would be going for more personally. But that is partially the Ayr fan in me talking, but that is also with the fact that I would have him potentially on a higher deal, because I'm not really making sense of what I'm saying here, Cam. That's what I'm trying to get the words out. But the fact is, he's on the last year of his deal and they are in financial trouble, so they'll probably just take any sort of money they can get in for him at the moment. But I'd be selling him on for more. But McNulty, he'd probably be all right. He'd probably be a fairly decent addition to Court's squad.
You could argue McNulty's done more in the Premiership than Lawrence Shankland has.
You could, to be fair. I mean, yeah, I think Shankland undersold himself last season, I feel. I think there was a lot of talk about him coming up to the Premiership, even when he moved to Dundee United from Ayr. I think we were a bit surprised to see him go to another Championship side and not take that jump straight to the Premiership. But he had that extra year of development in the second division, went up with Dundee United, and then I think his excellent Championship record perhaps oversold him to people perhaps got people overexcited. I mean, I think he got 8 goals last season, which isn't an awful return, especially for a team that really weren't known for free-flowing attacking football last year. But I don't know. I feel like it wouldn't be a massive problem for Dundee United if they were to bring in McNulty instead of Shankland.
Yeah. Well, last thing on Dundee United before we move on to Rangers, of course. They did ride their luck at times, perhaps. Rangers made plenty of chances, didn't take any of them. But is it maybe an early season-defining moment for them? A lot of people, due to the financial issues, possibly losing players, had them pegged as relegation candidates, but a big win against a team that hadn't lost in 40 league games. Is this maybe a sign of them saying, no, we're maybe going to push towards the top of the bottom 6 rather than the bottom?
I think it definitely could be. I mean, any sort of it was always going to be a statement for the team that did defeat Rangers, be it Celtic or be it anyone else in the division. These guys are 41 games unbeaten. So, I mean, any chance to stop that run would have been absolutely fantastic. And the fact that it did come from a team who don't have the best perception just now of their team, their club stability, that we don't really know an awful lot about their manager. But it was always going to be a big deal when a team did take a win off Rangers, and the fact that it's Dundee United, it's going to be massive for them to kick on and build on it for the rest of the season to come.
Yeah, definitely. We'll move on to Rangers now. Also, Steven Gerrard, the manager, said that his players needed some home truths after that game. What went wrong for them? What was it defensively? Was it an attack? They just spurned too many chances?
I'm not really too sure what it was. I don't think it can be identified in this one game. I mean, we've kind of mentioned it before, and I know we've had our own conversations, but they've not really looked completely at the races this season. I mean, they kind of sleepwalked a 3-0 win over Livingston, and that just because Livingston were pretty awful in their opener at Ibrox. The 2-1 loss to Malmo, they were kind of sucker punched a bit, and I think even up until that point, it was a fairly even game. I don't think Rangers were the more dominant side in that one. And then seeing this one at the weekend, I'm not really massively surprised. I mean, we've got a good friend and a Rangers fan in Graham Sinclair over at Energy Sport, and he was saying that the kind of biggest performance of last season in Tavernier, Connor Golds and the like, have just really not been performing to the usual standard, and that can be a bit of a reason as to why things went wrong. But I think Benji Seeger's probably just had another good game in between the sticks. I mean, I think Rangers did have their chances to really, on the stats, they had more shots. So I think Dundee United, the back line, they did really well to nullify it. I'm not really too sure if it's so much that Rangers were bad, but we should be more looking at the fact that Dundee United played really well and committed to the game plan that Courts had set out to them before the game. But there were definite areas of improvement, and potentially this could be a bit of a wake-up call that Rangers need, especially with such an important game tomorrow night.
Yeah, you've taken my next question. Really just worrying ahead of a massive game like Malmo. How does Gerrard rally the troops? What do they try and change? Like, you can't really change just misfiring your shots. What do you do to turn around a deficit you've already got against the Swedes?
It's hard. It is going to be hard, especially to try, if they are kind of heading towards any sort of slump. It is going to be hard to pick them up as soon as you can, but it's something that is going to be quite telling of Gerrard as a manager, I feel. I think if he really wants to establish himself as a top manager, which any manager will want to do, he's going to really need to pick these boys up at the first call of asking, because this could potentially be the first slip that Rangers have had in well over a year now. And ahead of such a massive game, you really shouldn't need to oversell it. You really shouldn't need to get your players up for it, because put it into perspective, they're going to be walking out in front of a full crowd at Ibrox. And I mean, I know they had 22,500 odd when Livingston were in town, but that's going to be doubled on tomorrow night. And I don't really think there's going to be anyone else that needs to tell the Rangers players how much they need to get this result other than the 50,000 fans inside Ibrox tomorrow. They're going to be absolutely mental. I'm really excited to see it, to be honest, a crowd of that size back in a stadium in Scotland again, because we know that the noise of 50,000 people, especially in Scotland, what that can bring. So I really think it's just a case of, you know what's on the line, you know what's at stake. You're going to have 50,000 people screaming at you if you don't get this right. So don't go out and do it for me, go out and do it for yourselves, go out and do it for them. I think that's the approach Gerrard should have to take.
Yeah, and for us two non-Rangers fans, just do it for the coefficient as well.
Cool, that's it. We're all about the coefficient.
That is all that matters. Speaking of welcoming fans back into stadiums, it's a shame that Celtic didn't have a full house for that win against Dundee, especially for young Kyogo Furuhashi, his hat-trick. Oh my God, 2 excellent runs for the first 2, and then an excellent run for the third, to be fair. Great ball from Ryan Christie, and he chips it past the keeper. Also good goals from Rogic and Ralston before Edwards' last-minute penalty. Some rout 6-0 versus Dundee. So obviously, like we've said, Furuhashi with that hat-trick. What are your thoughts on him what you've seen of him so far in the green and white hoops?
I have been encouraged, to be honest. I feel like, other than his little cameo against Hearts, I feel like he's still had a little bit of involvement, but I feel like he kind of get closed out, as did most of the Celtic forwards in that game. But I've been really interested in the signing. I mean, you don't often kind of hear big names coming out of Japan and kind of coming to Scotland. So I'm really interested to see how he got on, to be honest, just from a complete curiosity of me. So really happy to see him doing well. I think the hat-trick was really, really good. He was lively in the Europa League game, the Europa League qualifying game against Jablonec. Of course, scored in that game as well. And yeah, just really, really excited to see how he kicks on from this, because there's not really many better things he can do on a home debut in front of a crowd of fans, be it any sort of number of fans. Scoring a hat-trick, you can't really go much worse than that, can you?
No, definitely. Like someone did say it in the comments, I apologise because I've lost it, but he definitely could have had a double hat-trick. He missed a great chance early on, like a one-on-one, a simple pass into him, and he missed that, and you think, oh God, he could buckle here. A lot of fans in the stadium, but he didn't. He kept his composure, got 3 more, could have had a few more. Just even his positioning and his runs, his sprints into the box, like that takes usually weeks of training, tactical shape and all that. You don't need it. He just done it. Like, it's a really, really impressive home debut. I don't think Celtic fans are overstating how good a performance it was. But there's also
sorry, Cam, I just want to jump in because I think something that's really lending itself to Furuhashi, I think he left in the middle of the season over in Japan. So he came in ready. He came in match fit, match sharp. I mean, I think currently, I'd seen something on Twitter, he's currently the top scorer in both the Premiership and the J1 League as well. So no one's been able to get rid of his goal-scoring exploits over in Japan either. He's still sitting top. So that's been a massive help for him to be able to come in and kick on straight from the go, the fact that he came in match fit and ready from the word go.
Yeah, definitely. It seems like an astute signing so far anyway, but he wasn't the only good performer. There's also David Turnbull, Cal McGregor, Leo Labada, all fantastic in midfield, but I think all the talks about Ryan Christie out of that midfield. He got 3 assists, some amazing assists, the back heeling cutback, the through ball we just talked about for Furuhashi. But also he's expected to leave the club. Postecoglou has said that it's in his hands, it's up to Christie. He decides what his future is. How big a loss would he be at this point for Celtic if he was to leave now in this summer, not even staying for the rest of the season? How big a loss would that be?
We are starting to see the Ryan Christie that he's become known for in this season. He's been absolutely fantastic, especially in that game. He was head and shoulders above anyone else, to be honest. And I mean, he took a lot of flack last season when the whole team were underperforming, but I feel like Christie took a lot of the brunt of that, to be honest.
Definitely.
And people just so easily forgot what a player he actually is. I mean, everyone in Scotland was grateful to him when he sent us to the Euros with the strike against Serbia and Belgrade. But I feel there's such a good player in there for both club and country, and I think there's no understatement to say he'd probably be as big a loss as Edward if he went. Yeah. And I know we've got plenty of Celtic fans in the comments, and I'm happy to be proven wrong on that. But from an outsider looking in, he's such a crucial component of transitioning possession into attack and moving things forward. So I think Edward can score all the goals he wants, but if he's not got the service, then he doesn't get the opportunities. And I think if Christie's the one providing that service, he's as important to the team as a striker. So massive loss if he does go.
Yeah, definitely. Like Strange Love the Doctor says there, that blind reverse pass, oof. That was my exactly reaction as well. Yeah, it was outstanding. And going off the comments, this might affect your answer a little bit more. I was just going to ask, though it is inferior opponents, Dundee were not up to it. They really didn't show up. How excited must that one performance make Celtic fans? We can see it in the comments here. They're pretty excited about it.
See, the thing was, it could have been more than 6. That was the thing. Adam Leggson's had a pretty good game, all things considered, for conceding 6. He probably kept that below double digits, to be quite honest with you, just on his own. They did exactly what they needed to do. They isolated Charlie Adam, gave him no kick of the ball. And when you isolate Dundee's main player in him, they lose a game. It's quite as simple as that. He is the cog of that team, and fair enough, you kind of look at the promoted team from the Championship coming up, and they've got a game against one of the Old Firm teams you might not expect too much. Yeah. But you maybe would have expected maybe a 2-0 or 2-1 even, just based on Celtic's recent form. But to go out and score 6 and not even look like the team that played against Hearts, like they just look so much more assured of themselves. It's massively encouraging. And I think I've seen a couple of guys in the comments saying they're a lot more encouraged than what they were 2 weeks ago. And I think that speaks volumes already, the fact that things have kind of settled into a bit more of a rhythm already.
Yeah, it's amazing what 1 or 2 weeks difference can make in football. It's amazing how quick it can turn. Speaking of Dundee, we'll move on to them because I suppose we have to. Celtic deserve all the talk, but we do have to talk about Dundee too. It was a big wake-up call for them. I feel Dundee, people, they did have a good Championship running, but you've got to remember James McPake was a minute away from probably losing his job when Bonnyrigg Rose took them to stoppage time in the Scottish Cup in January. They somehow just turned it on after that, had a good run in, got into the playoffs, beat embarrassing Kilmarnock team. Beat a team that just shouldn't even turned up, let's be honest. And here they are. Is it harsh to say, can they cut it at this level, or is that quite a reactionary take just on one game against a very good Old Firm team?
I think it could be quite reactionary, but at the same time, you do need to kind of take it into account a little bit. Look, Dundee, you do get two sides of Dundee, to be honest, from what I saw in the Championship last season. I mean, I remember I saw them play twice, twice towards the back end of the season. Once away in David Hopkins' first or second game, I think must have second game, because I think his opener was against away to Hearts. Then went away to Dundee 1-3-1, and we were in a real slump at that point, and we hadn't really won since Alloa in the beginning of the year. So that was a massive loss for Dundee. Then they came down the road to Somerset a few weeks later, 1-3-0, and it was a complete turn in the page of what they put out at home. So you do get two sides to this Dundee side, and I feel like they were probably more towards that side in the 2-2 game with St Mirren in the opening game. Nowhere near it in this game, to be quite honest. But given everything, it can be quite reactionary to say, "Oh, they're going to fall away," but because you need to take into account it's one of the old firm sides, and even despite Celtic's problems, and there have been a fair few over the course of even the beginning of this season, it's a great result for them. So I don't know. I feel like you don't want to read into it too much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. It's just they've got some big names, but the rest of the squad just seems to lack quality. Before we move on, actually, we will talk a little bit more about Celtic. Just the goal scorers we'll talk about. So, Anthony Ralston, where's this came from? How do you think he's been able to turn this? Because a few weeks ago, even by people like myself, were going, how is he still there? Okay, maybe in this season, a good backup option. Why is he starting the qualifiers? Why is he going to be starting the season? And my God, maybe, I don't know his defending, but just by his goal scoring alone, he's shutting a lot of people up.
No, he absolutely is. And Stranger the Doctor made a good point. It's all about the fact that Ange Postecoglou is playing with inverted fullbacks and really creating those overloads in attack. He's really having Greg Taylor and Ralston push right up the pitch. And you saw that in the game against Hearts. He was basically in the centre of the park when he took the ball and just cut through a couple of bodies before firing it past Craig Gordon for the equalising goal. And it was the same kind of thing. He was just in the middle of the box, just looking for any sort of attacking momentum to kind of take him forward, and it was a decent wee finish again for him. So a really nice goal. And again, I don't really know if he will be a mainstay in this team. I still think Postecoglou and Celtic are looking at right back options, and I feel based on his defensive culpability, I would imagine that's the right decision to be taking. But for the moment, if they can just hit on this good run of attacking fortune and keep him involved, I feel like he's a fairly decent part of that team at the moment in terms of going forward anyway, because defending, I think Celtic fans would admit he's probably not up to par.
Yeah. No, I find that is fair, but it's worth mentioning, you said inverted wing backs. He's clearly good with his left foot. Both goals have came from that, if I'm not mistaken. I think both goals have been left footed.
I think so.
Yeah, he's proved a lot of people wrong. It's good to see him sort of rebuild his reputation just in the space of about 2 weeks. Like I said, a lot can happen in that time. We'll move on to Tom Rogic as well, because I'll be completely honest, before this season started, I don't know if it's because of injuries or what, I kind of forgot he was there. I mean, I just kind of forgot about him. Like, he's a great footballer, an unbelievable technical player, as he showed in that game, but I kind of forgot about him, and it's quite good to see him back starting for Celtic again, isn't it?
Yeah, no, great. I mean, you remember him kind of under Brendan Rodgers. He was constantly involved with everything that Celtic were doing in attack, so it's just been really good to see him he really did just kind of fade away into a bit of obscurity. I know there were a lot of rumours of him moving. I think there were talks of a move to Qatar or something, if I remember correctly. Maybe not this January just gone, but the January before. So there was a lot of kind of consideration over whether he would even remain at the club. But to see him kind of getting back involved and getting more heavily involved in attacking play again, it's really good to see, because when he was on, he was properly on form and he was a really good player. So hopefully we see that side of him once again this season.
Yeah, well, I suppose lastly, we'll talk about Edouard as well. Do you think, with the incredible form of the players around him just now, do you think if Edouard stays, does he maybe even struggle to get in this team? Or, because he is likely the best player in this league, will he be a guaranteed starter? I
think in any way, shape or form, he's going to be a must start. I mean, I wouldn't really give any kind of leeway to any of Celtic's other strikers, main strikers anyway, because you would probably have Furuhashi and Abada playing off him as wingers or even inverted forwards. So I just think he can't drop him, no matter how much interest in him, no matter whether he's interested or not. He's always got the opportunity to pop up with a goal. Even if your striker's not massively interested, he's always just going to naturally be in the best positions. And if it's a striker of Edouard's quality, and he's Edouard, so he is a striker of Edouard's quality, he'll be in those positions constantly. And I know he definitely didn't look all too bothered when he scored his penalty, just a couple of quick high fives and then back to centre circle. But at that point, that was 6-0 and it was the 90th minute, so the game was done. So I don't know. I'm kind of intrigued to see how his attitude changes if this good turn of form for a lot of Celtics players does keep up. I think Thursday night's going to be massively crucial for that, and I think the following tie is going to be even more important. So, yeah, I'm interested to see, because if a team down south do come in with a 15 million, 20 million pound offer, could potentially sway him, and that could be all she wrote. But for now, I'd be interested to see what happens.
Yeah. Well, we'll just have to wait and see, won't we? We'll move on now. Move on to another stellar performance, and that was from Hibernian. They thrashed Ross County 3-0. I think it was all goals within 11 minutes of each other. I think 22nd to 33rd minute. Real confidence booster Hibs heading into their Conference League qualifier with Rijeka the second leg after a 1-1 draw. While Ross County just looked as poor as expected, really. Hibs really dominated from the first whistle. 3 goals. Don't laugh at that. How dare you?
Sean Connery here. Goodness me.
Martin Boyle, Kyle McGuinness, and Christian Doidge with the goals. Really good goals too. Josh Dyke, we're going to speak about him because he got the assist for Kyle McGuinness's goal. He was not in the team against Motherwell last week. He was on the bench for the first leg against Rijeka, and then he got an assist for Kyle McGuinness, had a great game, and people are now contemplating whether you start him or Lewis Stevenson against Rijeka midweek. What would you do?
I'll get to that in just a little second, but we do have someone in the chat chanting air songs, which I am absolutely all for. Just keep that coming as much as you possibly can. We do appreciate that, especially if you can come back in when Sean McGill's on this show and just start chanting about Ayr United. He will absolutely appreciate that. He's a massive.
But if Sean has the controls, he will ban you from the chat. It's worth saying. That is a risk.
That is a risk you might need to run, but it's easy enough to create a new YouTube account. That's no problem. On to Josh Doig. I think you're an idiot if you start Lewis Stevenson over Josh Doig this week. I think the more this situation progresses, the less likely Doig is to leave, to be quite honest, because the more he gets back involved and the more quiet it gets, I can just see this kind of being marked up as there was definite interest, but it just kind of faded, and he might go next summer, because I think personally he's dealt with this situation absolutely perfectly. A 19-year-old kid, and he's not once handed in a transfer request. He's not once refused to turn up to training, unlike a certain England captain. He's not once shied away from his duties, and he's been on call whenever Jack Ross has needed him to come in and play. So it's a really kind of mature head on young shoulders, to be honest, and I think it's fairly amicable to see that happening. And the thing is, you don't take the number 3 shirt if you know for a fact you're going to leave.
Yeah.
And that I might not read into that, but he went from 25 to 3, and considering he was only really meant to be there last season as backup to Stevenson, quickly become the well-established first choice left back. I think he absolutely needs to start, because it's not going to be an easy game for Hibs away to Rijeka on Thursday. But should Josh Doig be playing, I mean, you saw him, he got a really nice cross in the box for Kyle McGuinness's header for the second goal. I think he's an absolute must start, and Hibs should keep on to him as much as they possibly can. But I think he's going to be a really easy guy to work with throughout all this. So I don't really see why there should be any problem with playing him.
No, I've got to agree. Like, also, I was at the game against Rijeka at Easter Road, and Stevenson, if not even for Josh Doig's quality, I think Lewis Stevenson, great guy, seasoned veteran, double cup winner at Hibs with the league and the Scottish Cup. But he was at fault for the opener. He got out-jumped by their 5'8" winger at the back post. It was embarrassing to watch. It was a bit of a cringe moment, and he was run ragged, to be honest. Greg have 2 of these Ghanaian wingers, both of them quite short, very fast, very tricky, feisty players, like to harass opponents. Lewis Stevenson isn't made for that kind of player to be up against them. He just isn't. And Josh Doig's youthful and experienced enough that I think he should. Like you said there, he's a mature head. Jack Ross actually said post-match that he's looking for maturity headed into these games, European ties. And after the game against Ross County, he actually praised Josh Doig's maturity. So I think he's kind of answered that one himself. I wouldn't be surprised to see Doig come back in. And I think it would be an absolute correct decision from Jack Ross. Speaking of Jack Ross, Murdo McLeod, a former Hibs man, he's actually praised Jack Ross this week for his handling of the whole Doig saga. And with many enjoying their football just now, Hibs, it seems like Jack Ross has actually finally got it figured out. He's come in for continual criticism because they failed to win anything in the Cups. They failed to really impose a great attacking style of football at Easter Road. But it seems like he's finally got it nailed down. He's got a great team, great system, and it looks like he could be doing well in Europe. We'll have to see for the Cups. What do you think about him? Are you expecting big things from Hibs this season?
To be fair, I am. I think I do have them pegged for a good season. There's not really much to be too upset about just now if you're a Hibs fan. I mean, I was speaking to Struan Garvey, our colleague here at the State of Scottish Football, a bit earlier on an Energy Sport podcast, the Football Roundup, and he was saying that it's just really gratifying and really exciting to have options in midfield.
Yeah.
The fact that Alex Gogic is sitting on the bench, Jake Doyle-Hayes has been able to come in and put on an absolute clinic whenever he's been on the pitch. He's looked really, really good from the start. McGuinness has been a lot more involved. Obviously, he's 2-2 in the league after kind of being a bit injured and kind of out of sorts last season. And Joe Newell's still kind of settled into that more central role a lot more rather than he would have done outside. So I think there's just a lot of encouraging signs as a Hibs fan just now. There absolutely would be. So I don't really think there's anything more to say other than I can expect, I wouldn't be surprised to expect potentially a cup this season. I know Rangers are going to be up in there in terms of going for a bit of domestic silverware other than the league. And with Celtic coming back into the four, they absolutely shouldn't be counted out. But we saw last season what can happen in the cups with St Johnstone going on and doing the double. I wouldn't be surprised if there is that kind of more open sense of competition going forward in these competitions. So it's definitely something that Jack Ross should be aiming for this season, absolutely.
Yeah, I think it comes down to, he said, so much in midfield they've got. I think maybe they can improve their back line, but their attack as well. I mean, Christian Doig is scoring goals. Kevin Nisbet will get better to his form like he had last season. And Martin Boyle is one of the scariest wingers. People do have indifferent opinions about him, but when he gets going, he is I would not like to be the fullback he's up against. It is ridiculous. He had a good game there, a good game midweek as well. And yeah, Hibs could do a lot of good things this season, which is scaring me, of course. Ross County, meanwhile, I think we can say the polar opposite for them. Obviously, a lot of trouble in the summer. People not happy about the appointment of Malky Mackay due to either past issues off the pitch and also just his record on the pitch as a manager. It seems like he wants a few more fresh faces in at Dingwall, but do you still think you did predict them to come 12th this season?
I did,
do you still, even if they bring in a good few players, do you still predict that for his side?
Yep. Plain and simple. Yeah, plain and simple, yeah.
Any real reason they want to explain?
I don't want Ross County to do well off the bat that Malky Mackay is in management. I have absolutely no time for him. He's not a good manager. He's not a good human being. So, no, I don't want to see Ross County do well, and I'm quite happy to see them on the receiving end of a 3-0 drubbing. So,
What about as a team then? Because I do agree with you personally, but as a team, they just look a little bit, I don't know, they're a bit just uninteresting. I really have no time for Ross County this season.
No.
I have in the past, but not this season for some reason. Even just their players, the plays, I just don't have any. They don't have any appeal for me.
They don't. The thing is with the county team, they've got a couple of interesting enough players. I mean, Big Jordan White up front, he's not a bad striker, and Ross Callaghan obviously moved to the county from Hamilton after kind of being their hero in really decisive moments last season. Just couldn't do enough to keep them up, but as a team, they just aren't inspiring whatsoever. They just don't offer any sort of positivity. So I can't really get behind them in any way, shape or form, even removing the external factors like the manager. Like the team itself is just, it's bad. There's no point sugarcoating it, Cam. They're not good. They're not a good team.
No, they're really not. I think we'll move on to another team that's not looking too hot, and that's Livingston, who lost it in the last minute against Aberdeen. They did take the lead for Bruce Anderson, his first league goal of the season after getting 2 in the Premier Sports Cup group stages. Teddy Jenks equalised with a good strike from the edge of the box before Jack McKenzie's last-minute winner for the Dons prompted a big pitch invasion from the travelling Don support after Matt Striek completely fumbled an unsuspecting long shot. Is that a good way to sum it up? It was a shot right at him. I don't know if he's blaming people in his way. He could have headed it away. He could have took a touch and volleyed it, and he somehow fumbled it into his own net. In fact, you know what? We'll start with Aberdeen because we have to start with the pitch invasion.
Yeah.
Is it a bit embarrassing, or is it allowed due to the circumstances of fans returning and it being a really funny goal?
Now, I have no qualms with this pitch invasion. The one thing I will say, I'm expecting Aberdeen to get some sort of punishment for it. Just based on COVID situation and everything like that, I can expect them to be slapped with a bit of a punishment. But look, if you've not been at football for 16 months and this is your first away day in God knows how long down to Livingston, you've been 1-0 down, you got the equaliser, and then you get a 94th minute winner. how can you expect to not go mental?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, I mean, going on the pitch, it's like it might be a bit kind of laughable potentially, but I mean, it's just good to see scenes again. Like, even if they were fairly minimal, that's the thing. I mean, I didn't have any problem. I saw it and I was fairly indifferent, but then I realised, oh, they'll probably get hit with a punishment off that. But it's just that consideration. What if one of the fans did end up with the virus and was going about trying to hug all the players, hug his mates, and hug the fans and everything? So that's where it does become a problem. But I didn't really necessarily have a problem with it personally. What about you? Because I mean, like, I feel like you and I can kind of have fairly similar opinions to things like this, but I'm not sure the way you're kind of speaking about it makes me think you weren't the biggest fan of it in the end.
No, not at all. Don't get me wrong. Any other circumstance, embarrassing a little bit. Nothing against Livingston, nothing against them, but shouldn't be celebrating massive ones like that against them in the last minute. But no, due to the circumstances. In fact, just because of the goal alone, I can't stress enough how bad it is from Striek, the goalkeeper.
Yeah,
it is so bad. I would pitch
the ball's coming. His head's like kind of just to the left of his hand, and it just goes through his hands and off his shoulder into the back of the net. And
it's like he doesn't get his body behind it. Maybe like at least he would have been behind it, but it's kind of at his side, and it just goes through him. It's literally all he has to do, move his hands a bit closer together, and it's stopped, but it just slips right through. It's unforgivable mistake. It happens, but it's kid stuff. It's amateur stuff. I'm sure, like we've seen them rotating goalkeepers last season. It could happen again. But no,
this is of course we would want to share. This is the analysis of a pair of jobbers sitting at home talking on a podcast about Premiership goalkeepers and how they should save shots from range.
I've played one game in goals at 11 aside, and this is me giving analysis on.
I was in a kickabout last week and playing in goal, so I know how he's feeling. Absolutely, I mean.
No, but seriously though, I enjoyed it. I thought it was good. All of our poor goalkeeping analysis aside, it's a good moment for Dons fans, and they deserve it, as does every Scottish fan base across the country. I want to see more moments like that. Obviously, maybe within more safety precautionary reasons, but I love a pitch invasion. Me, I genuinely do. I think you'll find I'm one of the only Jambos out there that will back Hibs back in 2016 when they invaded the pitch. I am all for a pitch invasion. Nothing wrong with it. I think a lot of people, Aberdeen fans anyway, have said this is the sort of game that they maybe wouldn't have won under Derek McInnes. They either would have thrown it away or they would have drawn. It's quite a hard thing to say because it's only a few games in, but what's the difference between this Stephen Glass team and Derek McInnes's? Is it just a new manager bounce, or is this genuinely a team that can now see out games? Even if it's a bit fluky, they can still berate the opponent enough that they're going to find a way through.
Well, put it this way, mate. Like Livingston were playing with the majority of their first team players. Like they had Bruce Anderson in, who formerly of Aberdeen, of course. He scored a bit of a bizarre goal, to be honest. I mean, jumped up backwards header with his eye closed. I mean, that's fair play to the boy for actually finding the back of the net. Yeah, but like, this is a team that was heavily rotated based on the Breidablik game that's to come this Thursday. So Ramirez wasn't in, Ramsey wasn't in, Ferguson wasn't in, Brown wasn't in. There were a number of different players. I think a couple of starts that you otherwise might have seen. Jack Gurr was playing right back, and there were a couple of other players coming in that otherwise might have. I don't think I would have expected to have seen Terry Jenks, to be honest, and he obviously got the first goal. So I think that speaks volumes in itself. That and I feel they can be quite difficult to play against sometimes, Livingston. We saw that last season. So Glass bringing this team down, going 1-0 down with a rotated side and going, right, we need to get something sorted here, and coming out to win the game 2-1. Goalkeeping error aside, that's really, really telling of what kind of team this is and the kind of manager that Glass is. The fact that he is able to get these results out from where it seemed like they might potentially not. So credit to him and credit to Aberdeen, because I've been impressed with what I've seen this season, to be honest. And I think it does come down to the fact that they didn't get Glass in fresh for the summer. They got him in early last season. They could start bleeding those principles in early doors, and they've had the whole summer to adopt them and grow on them. So brilliant.
Yeah, definitely. It's nice to see Aberdeen playing some good, proper football for a change, isn't it? Nothing against Derek McInnes, but at times it was hard to watch the Dons, but it's good to see them doing well now. Livingston then, obviously, it's a defeat for them. Positives that Bruce Anderson got his first league goal, but I think we've seen at the back, it wasn't even the worst performance from Livingston, I wouldn't say. They did have it until the end, 1-1, really late on. Just a mistake from Striek. They did have a good game. They probably deserved a draw or better out of it. But we do see a team that's lacking in the goalkeeper department. They've lost John Goodfrey at the back, a massive loss for them. They're just a little bit about the place. Like their next game, I think they've got St Mirren in the League Cup. A game that if they win, that's a good confidence boost for Martin.
Yep, definitely.
Boys. But after that, it's Motherwell at home, Hibs away, Dundee away. If they're not taking 4 or 6 points from that, it's a really bad start to the season. And obviously, last season they can turn it around. They've done that
Yeah, they
magic
absolutely
before.
can. Yeah.
But Lightning striking twice, I don't see it happening. So do you think they've got to at least get at least 1 or 2 wins out of that one? If they lose all 3, David Martindale could maybe be in trouble.
And you don't want to see that because everyone
Definitely
kind of
not.
rallied behind David Martindale last season, took the job. I'm annoyed to say it was a gubbing of Ayr United in the Cup. It was his first match, a 4-0 loss, and he scored 3 inside 12 minutes. That was painful to see, painful for me to see, but at the end of the day, it's David Martindale, and I feel like you can't actually get too far. Like, you can't actually be angry at that. Like,
no.
He just went on such a good run. The whole country rallied behind him, especially with the whole fit and proper persons test after his extracurricular activities, we'll say. But I do start to fear that if things do go a bit south for Livingston in the next couple of weeks, he might be facing the axe, and it's something you don't want to see because he's a good guy in Scottish football, so you just want to see him succeed. But there's players in there. That's the thing. Ayo Belai was great at Queen of the South last season. I just want him to kind of settle in quite nicely in the back line. So I don't know. I feel like it's going to be difficult for them because once they kind of start losing, they kind of go on that kind of streak, don't they? I mean, they were horrible towards the end of the last season. It was more relegation for them than it was European places pushing for. So interested to see how it turns out. But I hope things get better for them. I do have them predicted in 11th. That's the one thing I will say. I do have them predicted in 11th. Yeah. But I hope they've got enough to stay up, and I hope they've got enough to turn this around.
Yeah, just for Martindale alone, man. What a guy. We will move on to the 5th game of Scottish Premiership this weekend, and that was St Mirren 1, Hearts 2. It was Hearts' first win in Paisley since 2012, the first in the league since 2010. Thanks to goals from Andy Halliday and Liam Boyce. 2 nice goals, if I may say so myself. A Joe Shaughnessy header scared them late on, but Christian Dennis's immediate red card, I don't know if you've seen it, one of the most ridiculous red cards
I didn't actually
ever
see
seen.
it.
Oh my goodness. So St Mirren had just got a goal back, a great powerful header from Joe Shaughnessy. One of those goals, it was so powerful you think, oh no, like they're going to be, that's a momentum swing. Oh no. So Hearts go back, Hearts take kick off, they play it back to the centre back, and Peter Harron runs. So Christian Dennis goes to run for the ball. Peter Harron goes over to cover him, kind of Hearts like that. You go over to cover the run, and Christian Dennis just elbows him in the face. It's not even hidden. The referee's right there, 15 yards away tops.
Yeah.
And he could easily just get past them. He could give up. Like, you've still got 5 minutes to stay on the pitch, get another goal, get a point. And he just elbows him in the face. It's one of the most ludicrous red cards. If anyone here hasn't watched the highlights yet, because you've been so fascinated with the Celtic or Rangers game, please do watch it. It was good goals, but just for the red card, because it was really funny from a Hearts fan, anyway. If I may say so myself. We'll move on, though. We'll move on from that. Many people had St Johnstone to pip Hearts in 6th. People that we know. I don't know if you did. Did you have St Mirren to pip Hearts to 6th?
I did. Yeah, I did.
You did?
Yeah, I think I had Hearts 7th, I think.
A lot of people did. Yeah, I had them 6th with St Mirren 7th, but a lot of people, I think more people I knew had it the opposite, had St Mirren above Hearts. Obviously, both had a really good Premier Sports Cup campaign. I think both had a 100% record, if I'm not mistaken. It's only 2 games into a long season, but just bigger picture, people maybe underestimated Hearts. It's nothing against St Mirren, but Hearts have looked amazing so far, especially against Celtic as well in the opening day. So have people maybe thought, like, this is a championship team. They've been a mess the last few years. Have they maybe underestimated the team that Robbie Nielsen's got together here?
Quite possibly. I mean, they absolutely might have done. The thing is, I think this result absolutely put some demons to bed because it was away in Paisley, that 1-0 defeat, Jonathan Obika's goal. That was the last game that Hearts played before their relegation to the championship. I dangled the bait. I thought I'd let you go for it. So I think that's kind of a sign of the progress and absolutely putting those demons to bed. So I've been impressed with what I've seen. I've really liked the look of Gary Mackay-Steven. I think he's been the player that they thought they'd sign back in January. He's kind of back to his best and back to what he used to be doing best in Scottish football, which is just really, really advancing the play and getting involved in the attacks. I know Josh Ginnelly definitely didn't have the best of games.
That's true.
He was open and he admitted that himself. He said it was a bad one for him, but he got that. But it was 3 points at the end of the day, so can't complain too much about that. So I think if you take Jamie McGrath at that St Mirren team, I don't know if it's all too great. And I think I'd seen someone earlier, I think it might have been Daniel Mack, he said that McGrath's due a move. And I know he's been touted for a move away already this summer, and I wouldn't be surprised to see teams coming back in for him. So I feel like if he goes in terms of the creative aspect, St Mirren could be in a fair bit of trouble because Goodwin set them up as a good defensive team. We've seen that kind of during his time in the job. But going forward, I'm not entirely convinced on Eamon Brophy and Greg Kelty. I know I'd probably rate Kelty more than Brophy, but there we go.
Yeah, it's a team that could easily be torn apart with just one player leaving. Also, maybe one or two. I know Ethan Erhan's sort of a good player being touted away as well. Speaking of incomings, obviously Hearts have a defender called Mihai Popescu. He has previously had a loan at St Mirren, 17 appearances, but he's been told he can leave the Gorgie club. People are sort of putting two and two together and saying he could return to the Saints. They play free at the back. They've got Shaughnessy, Dunn and Fraser starting against Hearts. So do you think that'd be a good move for him? Do you think that'd be a good move for the Saints?
Well, I mean, you know more about his kind of reputation at Hearts anyway, and it doesn't seem to be entirely too positive. It seems to be the opposite at St Mirren. I think he's a fairly well-liked figure in Paisley. I think when he joined Hearts, a lot of fans were saying, oh, we're really going to be struggling without him. Like, we don't really want to see him go. So I think if he's kind of going back there and having that warm reception of being welcomed back, I think he might kick on and do a bit better than he has been doing for Hearts in the last season or so. So I can see it kind of working out all right for both parties, to be honest, because I feel like players know if they're getting the support from their fans, they're going to go out and put on a show for them. They're going to go out and do their best. So I think that potentially could translate in this situation as well.
Yeah, I do think there is a centre back in there. I just also think it's a bit of a bomb scare. If I'm just going to put it as quickly as I can, he's a bit of a bomb scare. I think if he's at a club that really appreciates him, he could do quite well. Maybe a bit less expectation on his shoulders. But yeah, I do think you're right. I think you're right. We'll manage to fit in St Johnstone Motherwell. I'm actually just going to ask you about a certain thing that Callum Davidson said also. It was a 1-1 draw. Stephen O'Donnell's own goal in the first half, ruled out by a really strong Tony Watt strike. After a good through ball from Stephen Lawless in the air. Davidson said after the game that Xander Clark is deserving of a Scotland call-up. Now, we've spoken with Xander Clark a lot, me and you.
We have. Yeah, we have.
And before we go into it, I will give him it. He had an amazing game.
He did. No, absolutely, yeah. He
can't shots
take that away from him.
Non-stop. But there is also Craig Gordon. There is David Marshall. There is John McLaughlin, all veterans. There's also Liam Kelly, who's in the opposition goal for this game, who also had a good game. Maybe didn't face as many shots as Clark did, but he had a good game. What is your opinion on Xander Clark for Scotland?
To be honest, he's probably all right as an option to have, because the thing is, the three guys that we've got at the moment, Marshall, Gordon and McLaughlin, they're not getting any younger. And Xander Clark's what, 27, 28, something like that.
20s, late 20s.
I feel like it's a fairly decent age for a goalkeeper. Probably got another 8-10 years in him. So, I mean, he'd probably be an all right replacement for one of the three. But I mean, I definitely would have Kelly in ahead of him. Absolutely, I feel like he'd be a better fit to start. So, I don't know. I feel like maybe a call up, but then just a bit part player in the squad, just not first choice. Definitely wouldn't have him first choice, but he's got a goal threat in him, I suppose, if you want to believe that argument.
He doesn't. He does not have a goal threat in him. He can maybe grab a lucky assist. He does not have a goal threat. He has not scored a goal. We're getting that out there now. Just in case people think you're being serious.
I did dangle the bait for you again. I'm
clearing it up. I'm clearing it up.
You're cleaning house, mate. Absolutely.
So he's a good option. Is that what you're going with?
Yeah, well, I don't know a good option because I don't know in what capacity Davidson's want him called up for, like whether it is for the starting role or whether it is just a squad player. I think good squad player, but not a starter. That's what I'll say.
I think I'd agree. I'd also agree that Liam Kelly would still be ahead for me. Also, it is just one or two good performances, but you never know. You can keep proving, like you say, it's a good age for a goalkeeper. We'll move on from the Premiership. We're done with the Premiership. We'll move on to, we'll hopefully have time for the Championship. We've got about 12 minutes to go, so we'll see. But firstly, we want to talk about the return of women's football. Jazz is something close to you as well. We have seen the Scottish Women's Premier League Cup start this weekend, and it means that Scottish women's football is back underway. It's just a group stage, isn't it? It is a group stage format, like the Premier Sport Cup. We've seen Rangers beat Queen's Park 8-0, an absolute thrashing. Celtic, Hearts and Aberdeen also picking up wins, but you were there as Hibs defeated Kilmarnock 4-0 in the opener. What was the game like?
It was interesting. Well, it was a bit. I can tell you a bit of a story with this one, to be honest. If you want to hear a bit of a stressful story. So the game started at 2, as per usual, and our stream was due to be up just a few minutes before. Now, I provide commentary for that stream, and if anyone wants a wee bit of women's football, they can absolutely watch that every weekend on Recast. I've not been paid by the club, I swear. But I turned up. I was a little bit late for the meeting time, but that was okay. So I'm just catching up with some people I hadn't seen in some time, and then someone goes, "We need to go. Get your car keys. We need to drive." And I'm like, "Okay, interesting." This doesn't usually happen. So I jumped in the car with our videographer, and he goes, "I forgot the capture card that we need to stream, or it was broken or something like that. I can't remember exactly what it was. So we need to go and buy a new one. I've ordered it on Argos and Linlithgow. We need to get there immediately."
How short did you cut it?
Well, the thing was, I would have made it back in time, but the road that I was going through to get through to Linlithgow, it was closed, and there was no through road, so I had to double back on myself, and that added an extra 10 minutes or so. So we parked up, and I sprinted through the through Volunteer Park to get the thing set up. So we were about 10 minutes in before we actually get the stream up and going, but nothing had happened at that point. But
all the goals were caught. All the goals were caught. That's what matters.
Almost crashed my car about 4 times going around all these by roads in West Lothian, but I'm still standing. I managed to get out with it a scrape.
Good man. Good man.
The game itself, you were asking about, fairly dominant from Hibs. This is their competition. They've held the trophy since 2016. Obviously, it was interrupted, and then they didn't have the competition last season just to deal with any COVID protocols and things like that. So this is their first chance to kind of defend it in the last 2 seasons, and it got off to the perfect start. Good professional performance in the opening half. New signing Alexa Coyle from America. She opened the scoring with a penalty, and then Amy Gallagher. I think there's a bit of debate amongst the camp whether whose goal it actually was, because Amy Gallagher hit it from the edge of the box, and it appeared to come off Colette Kavanagh before going into the back of the net. So, they're both obviously claiming it, absolutely. Mm-hmm. But then both had the opportunity to get goals of their own. Colette Kavanagh scored an absolute wonder strike in the second half. It was one of them. Like, she hit it, and then it hit the back of the net, and she just turned around with her hand over her mouth. So she absolutely didn't expect that. Yeah. And Amy Gallagher scored again to make it 4-0. But good professional performance. Some new signings settling in well, and just good to have it back. So I think what have we got next weekend? Away to Stair Park against Forfar, another top flight side. So
funnily enough, you mentioned Forfar. My next question before we move on to the Championship is they're a top division team, and they were beaten 10-0 by second tier Dundee United. Is that right?
I think so. That was. I mean, I didn't see that result. I did not know that.
They did. They got beat 10-0 by Dundee United.
Mate, I missed that one.
Do you think? Obviously, you have missed it, but you know enough about it. Do you think it is maybe a shame, like Forfar Farmington are a team that have been there for years for women's football, and then Dundee United come in when it gets popular, let's say, put a bit of investment in, and now we're seeing results like this. Is that a bit of a shame for the teams that have sort of led the way for so many years, are now sort of being cast aside?
A little bit, but at the same time, there's people that are wanting to advance and grow the women's game in Scotland, and they've got the monetary backing to do so. So it does kind of have that kind of morality versus monetary kind of debate in your mind, like whether you want to see the teams that are more invested and want to push for a more competitive women's league in Scotland and raise the profile of the league, which we absolutely want to see. We can say that without any uncertainty. We want the women's football in Scotland to develop to a level that the men's is at, to be honest. I mean, and it should be, to be honest. The women got to a tournament before the men did this century, which says a lot about how the women are playing. So I feel like it might be a bit of a shame, but Forfar kind of do have a few bad results in them. I think Hibs played them last game of the season. I was commentating over a 7-0 win, so they do kind of have those kind of bad results in them. But I didn't expect that one, to be honest. That's kind of shocked me a little bit. 10-0 to a second tier side in the cup. That's a bit of a shock, yeah.
Yeah, it's a shame. We'll move on, though. We've got just enough about time, 5 minutes to squeeze in the Scottish Championship. So, obviously, we've already mentioned Ayr drew 2-2 with Arbroath. Now, both sitting, I think, 7th and 8th in the table. I think maybe not the biggest shock, but perhaps by the way the scoreline, it could be. I've got Pars beating Dunfermline. That's wrong. It's Partick Thistle beating Dunfermline.
It is, yeah.
Away from home. I've wrote Pars.
That was a shock. That one was a shock.
Well, that's it. Partick now sit top of the table, 2 wins from 2, while Dunfermline have only got 1 win from 2. I mean, Dunfermline, we were waxing lyrical about them. Me especially.
They've got 1 point from 2, not 1 win from 2. They've got 1 point from 2. They're 9th.
Yes, they do. I have misspoke. I actually knew that. I have misspoke.
Just checking that. Like
Thank you for correcting.
That's put it back into perspective.
Yes, that's even they are above only Queen of the South.
Winners. Yep. I pegged them as winners, and they're sitting 9th.
Yes.
Never take advice off me for anything. That's the one thing that we can say with some certainty. That's just shocking.
Yeah, it's worrying for them, right? It's got to be. Like we did say before that it's their defence that could be their downfall. When their attack isn't scoring goals, you at least need the defence to keep a clean sheet, and they conceded 3 to newly promoted Partick. It is a big worry, isn't it?
That's what they've lost in Ewan Murray. He was just such a kind of consistent presence as club captain in the back line, and him going to Kilmarnock has really kind of upset the apple cart at Dunfermline a bit, and they are kind of shipping goals for fun, it seems, at the moment. I mean, what was it weekend before? It was remind me. It's gone off the top of my head, but they conceded two goals to Greenock Morton, who Greenock Morton have, I think the last time I checked, 13 first senior players at the club.
Yeah. They had a good result as well, though. We'll give them that. But yeah, continue.
The thing is, it might just come down to potentially not really having much positivity to say about Peter Grant in the job. I mean, maybe not the genius that the League Cup kind of put him out to be in any way, shape or form. So there is that. So Partick, though, I think a lot of people were expecting them to be back up there. I expected a kind of mid-table finish from them. But again, I'm eating my words already. I mean, it might be reactionary to say that, but I mean, two games in and they're sitting top. That's not really anything to scoff at or underline in any way. So,
no, definitely not. They both really not reaching people's expectations. Partick for good reasons. Dunfermline not so much. We've mentioned Morton. They actually did have a good result. They beat Hamilton Accies 1-0. Accies. When we're mentioning them, because Morton are just a complete mixed bag. We don't know what to expect from them. Everyone's put them bottom of their list, including me. And they're doing okay.
4 points from 2 games. That's good. That's a good start.
That is good. That's a solid start. Accies, meanwhile, again, a bit like Dunfermline, 1 draw, that 4-4, amazing comeback against Raith. You go, right, that is momentum building. You come into this game and you lose away to Morton. Oh, you lose at home to Morton, sorry. It is. It's a really bad thing for Accies, isn't it? Like, them and Dunfermline were expecting to be playoff teams. And now it seems like neither of them, with their starting form, both of them could be struggling to make it into the top 4.
Yeah, no, absolutely. To be fair, I don't think I had Hamilton pegged for top 4 to begin with. I had a feeling it was going to be a fairly middling season from them. I didn't expect them to come back up at all. To be honest, I think this could be an opportunity for them to kind of reassess how they run the club. Or not how much they run the club, rather. That's the wrong way to say.
Just a fresh start, almost.
Fresh start, kind of the way they play football. And I think it's a good opportunity for them to bleed in all these youth players that they're so consistently good at producing and get a new batch in the first team and get them a year of experience in the championship and potentially push on to get back up next season. So they're missing a lot of players. Ross Callaghan and Hakima Dolphin, the two biggest losses for them this summer. Ross Callaghan led by example a lot of last season, and Hakima Dolphin was absolutely excellent. He's now gone back down to Rotherham. So I feel like it's going to be a tough season for them if they don't get players in, but 300 grand for a Dolphin, that's in their back pocket now. So hopefully they'll start doing something with that. So need to see what happens, but interesting start from Morton, especially when so many consider them to be right down at the end.
Oh, absolutely. There was also Inverness beating Raith and Kilmarnock getting a last-minute winner from Jason Naismith to beat Queen of the South. We won't talk about it, Jack. I don't want to upset you.
Good.
But that's Inverness and Killie. Both got 2 wins from 2. They are up there with Partick Thistle. I suppose we'll round out. You were at Ayr Arbroath. It was 2-2.
Yeah, it was.
Talked about it, but the game itself, I'll give you a minute. We've got a minute until I'll sign off. So, what was that game like? Was that a comeback, you said?
It was 2-0 down at half time, and I'm thinking, can I leave a press box early? Like, that is the level that I'm actually at. It was absolutely woeful. It was just long ball FC from the start whistle. Just everything seemed to be going over the top to our lone striker, Tommy Adeloye, who really didn't have any support from his runners throughout the first half. Anytime Ayr did anything positive, it was along the ground, and that's what we needed to take into the half. But the first goal, brilliant strike, can't say much less about it. I mean, Joel Newble, the on-loan Livingston striker, he just bent one into the top corner from a tight angle on his right foot. Fantastic. But then not long after, the Michael McKenna goal should never have gone in the first place. He's sending it across to the back post. Charlie Albinson says leave it, and then it just nestles in the bottom corner without him moving. So shocking.
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 Okay.
Something changed at half time, and he brought the kind of, he made an interesting move, David Hopkins. He brought off attacking midfielder Dale O'Connor, and he brought on defensive midfielder Adam Muirhead. And I'm sitting thinking, why is he doing that when we're chasing a game? But it did kind of seem to work out. He chucked all the strikers on the pitch, moved to 4 at the back, and it worked well. And we got 2 goals back and could have won it at the end, to be honest. There was a good chance for Mark McKenzie in stoppage time to head it into the top corner. It just missed the target. Unlucky to not get a second goal of the afternoon, but good to see the fight back, to be honest, because he said, Hopkins said after the match, that's a match last season we would have lost 3 or 4-0. So if that's the progression, we need to start building on that now, because we need to get wins under our belt should we stay up in this division.
Well, yeah, it's an interesting result for both Ayr and Arbroath. 2 teams are expected to be around that spot, so we'll see how it turns out for them. That is us hitting the hour mark. So I'd just like to say thank you to everyone who joined us, everyone who commented, everyone who interacted, everyone who listened to us. This show will be back tomorrow at 6 p.m. There will be plenty of other shows out by then, too, I believe, so please keep an eye out. Like I said, you can subscribe to us on YouTube and get involved with the prize draws that we have very regularly. And that's it. Thank you. Goodbye.